Welcome to the Women's Money Wisdom Podcast. I'm Melissa Joy, a certified financial planner and the founder of Pearl Planning. My goal is to help you streamline and organize your finances, navigate big money decisions with confidence, and be strategic in order to grow your wealth. As a woman, you work hard for your money, and I'm here to help you make the most of it. Now, let's get into the show. One of the questions I get so often from clients is, how do I build my own dream house? I want to do this. This is on our list. We don't always get to win, but I wanted to devote this episode to talking about building your dream home. And I brought in a team of experts because that's not an area, as you'll hear in the conversation, that I have as much expertise in. So I'm going to be learning a lot in this episode too. I am thrilled to be joined by two members of Meadowlark Design+Build. Melissa Kennedy is president and entrepreneur operating system integrator, and Jen Hinesman is design director, both at Meadowlark Design+Build. Ladies, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Good to be here.
Well, I'm going to start with you, Melissa. You just spoke last, and just introduce us. We're talking about this huge topic, to me at least, very complex, building your dream home. Tell me a little bit when somebody, calls you out of the blue and says, hey, we're building a house. We want to talk to Meadowlark. We're talking to other people. Where may they be at in that project, and who are they going to end up talking to?
Melissa, it's so fun to talk to people about building their dream home. We really, really believe that beautiful spaces impact lives. And so many of our clients have careers where they are really impacting the world in such positive ways. And so it feels like a gift to be in this field, to be able to design these homes for people. And so when they call, it's really an exciting part of the initial phase, because we do feel like we've been at this, Meadowlark's 20 years old this year, and we've been at this working with homeowners to figure out how to build a custom home for 20 years now. And it's an incredibly challenging process, but it's also wonderful when you work with the right homeowner to help them achieve their goal. And so they call in or email in, on weekends and evenings, whenever busy people have time to send emails to inquire about, these side projects that just take up so much time, but are really exciting to tackle. So we get homeowners who are moving here, so frequently now post-COVID. People are moving here from larger cities and out of state and wanting to be closer to family or move back to the town they grew up in or went to college here. So some people call in just looking for land, and they said, we saw your pictures on Instagram and we want to build a home. And some of that's after doing sort of research on what homes are available and not really seeing what they want. Other people call us when they have plans. They've worked with an architect before, or even an interior designer, or they've even drawn something themselves. And they have this idea and they put it on paper, but now they want to both find land and work with a builder who can help them bring it to fruition. Other people call us like right when they bought the land and they're interested in building. And so we like to help people talk through the process from wherever they've started at to how we can get something built. And a design build company operates a bit differently than an architect and a builder. We really do work with our in-house design team to get clients' ideas into real physical built space where their family is, hosting a holiday party at. And so it's just a little bit different thinking, where our front-end design team really works with clients to think through the cost and the timeline, and when they can put even their current house up for sale so that they can get ready to move into their home. What sort of contingency is there? How does their family live during this season where they're building the custom home? Because there's a lot more involved than just building the home to having a homeowner build the home. And so whenever people call us, we like to try to keep it as simple as possible, but really figure out how they need us in the relationship and who we can connect them with.
That reminds me so much of really financial planning done right, where you can take a really complex either idea or goal or dream and break it down in a way that makes it achievable. And I understand that, for example, with a retirement, but I've already said no clue when it comes to the build of the house. Now, Melissa, you just said the design team is where you start, and Jen, that's you, right?
That is.
So tell me, when somebody has their first meeting with you, what are they bringing to the table? What are you asking? Where do you guys start?
Oh, we are really relationship based. right? Residential design and build. And so asking them questions, again, just meeting them where they are. Are they coming to town? Are they familiar with the area? How long have they been looking for land? Do they have?
And I should say, we're in Western Washtenaw County, or Ann Arbor, Michigan. That's right. Your home base. I'm sitting in the next town over in Dexter.
That's right. Absolutely. So I have, a recent homeowner, I'll sort of like a case study. A recent homeowner called in. She was looking for a piece of property that actually she wanted to, build like kind of like a compound with her mother. And so before she even purchased the land, she contacted us. We kind of discussed a couple different parcels, kind of pros and cons of each, like a high level, right? And then she came in and met the team, kind of talked through, sort of those bigger, higher level ideas, goals for the project. She wanted an art studio, wanted a space she can connect with the land. So those are really important. What we did, even before we started the design process, was looked at the land, well and septic, municipalities, all of those kind of nuts and bolts, not so exciting, but super necessary, like pieces of the research, components of the research.
So you guys are looking at the land, you're listening to what your prospective client is telling you. At this point, is a real estate professional involved, a real estate agent or someone like that?
That's a great question. Yep. Sometimes there is a real estate professional involved. We certainly do involve, anybody who's on the team. We definitely want to have a conversation. I think it's really open and honest communication with all of the team members or anybody who's involved in the process. Real estate agents certainly are very, great collaborators in terms of looking at different pieces of property, understanding any of there's strange little clauses, especially, it's adjacent to farmland and this person owns 5 acres. It's just, sometimes there's some kind of wacky things. So super important to have that person involved, of course. Other
Who else might be involved at that point? Sorry. I'm thinking, I go straight to the numbers. So I'm thinking a banker maybe, or the financial advisor who's like, okay, they're
absolutely.
Most projects I would assume have budgets.
Every project has a budget, absolutely. And I would even think the financial advisor oftentimes is the person, the first stop, right? Before even, I think you had mentioned cultivating that dream, planning for that dream, much like retirement, planning for that custom home dream and how to make it reality. So definitely financial advisor for sure. Banking partners, absolutely. Always advocate for a partner who is open again to the conversation. Every homeowner has a different financial landscape, I would call it maybe, right? And so being able to have those conversations with local bankers, I think that's kind of an important component. I think local bankers do understand this kind of unique area that we live in Ann Arbor and the surrounding areas.
Yeah, it's hard to go and call a big bank, a few states away and try to explain that,
right?
What type of appraiser you need, for example,
right.
What the comps are, things like that. Because I'm assuming with custom builds, it's more difficult when you are appraising to get those comparables because you're building something that hopefully is unique and hasn't been done before.
Yeah, you're right. It is trickier.
Well, let's talk about the design phase. I want to hear, so initially, there may or may not be land. There may or may not be plans, things like that. What do you need before you start to dig and put the walls up, things like that? What's going to happen before then?
That's right. So it is a custom home. We do build custom homes that really are unique to our homeowners and what they need. I think Melissa did mention that space does matter. So we really want to understand the homeowner's needs now and then maybe in the future as well as their family or their lifestyle changes. Families grow, lifestyles change, right? And so, again, just sort of getting to understand the homeowner. Also understanding the land, the piece of property, and how the home relates to the site. So understanding, again, the municipalities, the setbacks, all the requirements. If it is in town, understanding connections to sewer and water. If it's a little further out, maybe well and septic. Those are kind of like the nuts and bolts components before we can start dreaming. So we get to know the homeowner, we get to know the land, and then we dive into conceptual design. So usually creating a couple different concepts. Again, kind of higher level, almost like sketchy in a way to help the homeowner understand, how their house will look and feel when they pull up the driveway. We want their heart to pitter patter, right? We want them to be excited when they drive up the driveway, this is their home. This is where they're creating memories, where they're celebrating holidays. So definitely want them to understand, how it looks and feels. And then we move into the interior, how, the different components, how it fosters conversation in the kitchen, how their kids are going to lay out their, homework assignments and draw on the poster boards at the island while they're cooking dinner, or when they're having large family gatherings, Thanksgiving meals, and that sort of thing. We also look, again, zooming out at site placement. So thinking about how the sun will rise and how you'll feel the sun and how it will set and what that feels like on the interior spaces too. And then also sustainability. We want to build a house that is awesome, that again gets your heart racing, but then also is going to stand the test of time. So talking about green features and benefits and how that really it's not just a nice to have, but really how your house is going to feel and perform now and again into the future as well.
I wanted to interject really quick.
Yeah.
As Jen's talking, I keep thinking about it is people's dream home, and doing this type of a project is a dream. And I think it's really important to remind people that no dream can be achieved while you're hands off. And so people knowing what a time commitment is required of them as homeowners to pursue this dream, it really is relational, which means we need homeowners to engage and somehow carve out time to help achieve this dream, because their input in the lighting and the layout and what their family needs and spending time to really think it through will make them feel very confident in the construction process of all the decisions that were made up front. So the time commitment, along with the financial commitment, is just a really big and important piece for people to consider before they step into making this dream a reality.
Well, that brought me to a conversation I had with a client last week who is doing a custom build,
Exciting.
Almost full tear down in a city on the east side of Detroit. And she's about 9 months in, and she was like, if I have to make one more decision about, I don't know.
Fatigue.
The decision fatigue is real, but that is so true. You can't just be like, hey, I have this dream. Let's, drop it into the room, and then I'm going to walk away and come back in 6 to 12 months with, my vision becoming reality. You really need to both know the time you're going to need to invest as well, that this is not light touch project. You really need to be invested, or otherwise, it's okay if that's not a good fit. There's so many situations in real estate where people come with, a desire, and I say, okay, and this is not a raining on parade situation. This is an understand what you're getting yourself into situation of, do you know you may be carrying 2 mortgages? Do you understand that these types of projects don't happen in 6 months? Things like that. Setting the table with realistic expectations up front is so big in terms of satisfaction with the project.
Yeah, it is. And I think those are, it's the time, it's the budget, it's even knowing who you're collaborating with. Sometimes it's like Jen said, it's a mother and daughter situation. Sometimes it's a couple situation. Sometimes it's a single female situation. So just knowing who are all the people you even want at that table or have at that table to be making decisions with. And I think the more we said open and honest you can be about who's there, your financial planner, your spouse, maybe it's your mom in certain situations, and making sure that you understand what those voices are and who's the decision maker. All too often, it's happened before, and now we really try to help people prepare for this, is that somebody who is a decision maker comes to the table late. And then it's really frustrating for our homeowners or our clients to try to navigate those conversations again with somebody who's maybe has a louder voice than what they were thinking. So even understanding who the players are is a really important piece.
And hopefully you have the flexibility to decide, because there can often be in situations, especially I'm thinking for single women, people that want to step in and kind of take control, and that may or may not be appropriate. So making sure you have the right kind of players that can be additive and not make things more difficult, I think is really important. Yeah. So Jen, in this design phase, so you're sketching, you're both doing the concrete, like, hey, we need to have a way to have utilities connected to the outside world, etc.
Water is nice. It's nice to have water.
Exactly. Also the dreams, have the clients contracted with you for this phase, that design phase, as a, initial phase where everybody knows what you're being paid, the economics of it. can't help myself trying to understand the, the dollars and cents.
Of course. Of course. It's super important. You mentioned every homeowner has a budget. It's absolutely true. So what we try to work through, the designs inform the level of investment, and the level of investment informs the design. There are 2 phases of design for us. Conceptual design, again, making sure we're on the same page. It's a long-term relationship, right? So we want to make sure that the homeowner is excited about the ideas, that it's a trusting relationship, and that also number 3 is that it's the right level of investment in ranges, right? So we're still conceptual, but we always are talking about that level of investment to make sure we are speaking the same language, are on the same page in terms of, that build cost.
And so in that phase, they know what they're paying you to design the concepts, or else it's,
yes.
Like I'm assuming that in some cases you could think you're working for a certain number of hours, and then there's multipliers based on.
Yes. That we could draw until our hands fall off. We love it so much, for sure. The first phase of design, as I mentioned, conceptual design, is a fixed cost for design services. It's really like a feasibility study. I think all the components you were just talking about, certainly, the beautiful aspects, again, getting that heart racing, all of the interior features, some finishes, mood boards, but also timeline. I think Melissa, I have 2 Melissas, but Melissa Kennedy mentioned, that timeline, right? In terms of how long the build will take. We also talk about how long the second phase of design, which is detailed planning, how long that takes. It's very hands-on. If you think about a funnel, we start really wide at the top of the funnel with conceptual design, and we continue to move down the funnel until the bottom of the funnel. That's when we go into construction. So we're working through designs. We're working through levels of investment, getting more and more granular with each. So then when we go into construction, we have a really well thought out, considered floor plan, but also financial plan and timeline plan as well.
So that second phase, I'm assuming, is where you start to talk more about what realistically to expect in terms of what the market's giving you for costs, both in materials, labor.
That's correct.
Whatever else you need to invest in.
That's correct. Yeah, absolutely. Get more and more granular, again, working towards permit drawings and construction documents. But on the flip side, also talking about, as you just mentioned, that level of investment. Really talking about the site work and excavation costs, square footages, all of that, right? Not just going from we need X amount of lighting fixtures, moving to, okay, we need that specific lighting fixture.
And at what point in time is this is assuming, I'm sure you love clients who just walk in and say, money's no object, I've just got cash in the bank, ready to write checks. But in most cases, the people involved are probably living somewhere else if we're starting from the ground up. And then also may or may not have the luxury of just, being able to fully finance with their checkbook. So at what point in time does a lender or bank become involved who will help to finance the project?
That's a great question. We need enough information for the bank to understand the level of finish, the components, square footage, number of bedrooms, bathrooms, even fireplaces and, outdoor spaces, understanding all of those components, but not too far along where we feel like we're so locked in that we can't make changes should we need to after the appraisal comes back.
Perfect. And it's that lender saying, hey, hopefully in most cases, it's like, this looks good, we're good. But I'm assuming in some cases, they may have pause and say, I don't know, they know the market too when they're saying, we need to make sure that this would appraise correctly, or assuming that you need a loan at the end.
I think, absolutely. I think it's a little bit tricky in terms of custom homes because there's nothing built yet, right? And so we're looking at comps in the area of homes that are already built. So it's not necessarily apples to apples because we are using newer technologies now than a house that was built, maybe 10 years ago, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a little bit tricky, but we have really worked hard to kind of cultivate and foster relationships with different bankers in town and in the area. I think it's really important for homeowners to pick a lender that understands what they're trying to achieve with their custom home. That way, the appraiser has a better shot of also giving you that value. They understand the components and, again, what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, so I'm assuming you're asking people, about construction loans, like how many have you been doing? And, is the bank able to be successful in those, things like that?
Yes, absolutely. Work hand in hand with homeowners and banks as well. Definitely. It's definitely a team sport.
I was going to say, it's not uncommon that while we're designing, we're actually pulling comps for the homeowners to show like where the value is, because different people also have different amounts of cash they're willing to put in, knowing where the market is going to go if they're going to stay in their home for 10 to 20 years. So there is, I think that's interesting for people to think about is what does the builder provide as far as supporting homeowners to get the resources they need to build the project. And we're quite heavy-handed in it.
That makes a lot of sense. So this design phase, how long can it go? I'm sure that every project is different, but what are we talking here?
Every project is different, really and truly. I would say maybe an average, give yourself 6 to 8 months in detailed planning. People are busy. Our homeowners are busy. And if this is your dream home, give yourself a little bit of space and time to be able to think about decisions and not be under the gun, right?
Perfect.
I think it'll just give the best results in the end.
So then all the stars have aligned. We're sitting in Michigan, so I'm assuming you also need the weather to align. There's certain months that you may not be starting, to dig. But when you get to that point, what should someone expect after the design phase?
Maybe Melissa should field this question.
I'm happy to talk about this. Yeah, after the design phase, when all the decisions are made, there's about a month to 2 months of some quiet time where we're working on permitting, getting everybody aligned to start construction. And yes, we live in Michigan, so it's questionable what the right season is to build. Spring is rainy and unpredictable, fall is rainy and unpredictable, winter is icy and snowy, and summer can be like relentlessly warm. So we just like to start whenever it can start, whenever we get permitting through and bank loans have closed and we have the drawings done, we like to start construction. And we are constantly working around the weather. So building a custom home is quite different than like a neighborhood development where they're very similar and it's not so custom and all the trades can just like truck along through a neighborhood. Custom home means it's very unique. It's one on the site. There's not multiple. And so after this period of downtime, we start excavation. And that can be a bit unpredictable. And actually, then foundations and then framing. And once the house is weather tight, that's when the process gets more predictable. So we work really hard to get the site work done, the foundations, build the exterior walls, get the windows in, get the roof in. And now the rough trades can start to do the work. And that's when homeowners' time also becomes more important to be available. We do weekly walkthroughs with our homeowners, make sure everything's going in the right ways before the drywall gets on, because it's a lot easier to change things before drywall gets on than after drywall gets on the house. But you can expect a custom home build to be anywhere from 15 to 20 months or beyond that, depending on complexity. We have a lot of homes several homes right now that are looking for no gas utilities. And so there's a lot of coordination with solar and batteries and making sure the insulation and the framing all work together to have a really tight envelope. And a lot of those decisions are made in the design phase so we can do a better job of predicting for our homeowners what the schedule for construction might be. And for construction schedules, we really work more towards milestones. It's like, what are we doing this quarter? Where will we be? Because it's really unpredictable week to week what's happening. But if we focus on quarterly milestones, we can usually get there with a strategic way and keep homeowners aware of what the goal is for the project.
Well, I can see with someone who specializes in EOS that quarterly milestones would be a natural fit of every 90 days counts, your 90-day rocks. When you say 15 to 20 months, is that during the construction phase or does that include the design phase?
It does not include the design phase. That's just the construction phase. It's shockingly long. And I think one of the things that we've really been aware of in the Midwest is there is not a lot of skilled trades labor. And so something we do work with our trades on and cultivating awareness of is there are not many trades that are just, we can fill in on a job because the level of expertise, it's just so weak in the very professional area where we need our craftsmen to operate in our custom houses in order to get the details executed that we've designed. And so just a reminder that building a custom home is not Amazon. You can't buy it and it appears at your mailbox. It really does take time because there are physical hands doing all of the work that's involved in building a custom home. So all the more important to decide those decisions up front. So when the skilled laborers are pure on the job and have the time dedicated to do so, they can really work to execute instead of figuring out what they're supposed to be doing.
Well, I've had that discussion often with clients that are speculating on the kind of future of real estate market in Michigan in particular. When we had the Great Recession in the mid 2000s and our economy was so tied to manufacturing industry, we really lost 15 years of building construction, much more depressed home starts than the rest of the country. And with that loss comes the loss of those skilled laborers, just like you're saying, which can make a project in Michigan more expensive than it might be in a different part of the country. So that's something that people need to be aware of, but it's also why people are driven to wanting to build their own custom homes, because when you look around the market and you look at perhaps dated, kind of inventory in homes that weren't built the way that people prefer nowadays, it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy when people have the luxury of a choice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it absolutely is. And this company was founded by Doug Selby and Kirk Brandon, and they really believe in leaving a positive impact on the world, on the planet, and on the community. And so building with integrity is one of those motivators to making sure that we leave a clean of a footprint as we can on the earth. And so, yes, then it means hiring the right people, having the right trades involved who really do care about their craft, in which, yes, it does take time. It's a labor of love and not a labor of speed.
Well, Melissa, I'll allow you to give a little bit of a plug for Meadowlark, but talk to me as people are deciding, if they're listening to this episode and saying, I want to be in that room. When I see where's the sun rising and setting on the house, I'm thinking, this is what I need in my life. Talk to me a little bit about Meadowlark, but people listen from all over the country and in fact, all over the world. So if you're interviewing a design and build team, what should you be asking for? What should you be looking for? And tell me what you guys, kind of what you think makes you different.
I think when you think about a relationship, I think it's really interesting for homeowners to think about when they've successfully collaborated on a project, what kind of team has that been with? And homeowners are 50% of the responsibility, right? There's the homeowners, there's the builder, and then we actually say there's the house too. The house kind of speaks for itself. But when you're thinking about who you want to be involved with for this dream, who's going to help you realize your dream, what does a successful collaboration look like? And so for Meadowlark, we have project managers on staff. We have a full design team on staff. So we really do like to take the reins and sit in the driver's seat. Homeowners are always in the car, as are our trades professionals and the bankers and the financial planners. But Meadowlark really likes to drive the seat. We like to work towards deadlines. We like to get things into action and get homes built. There's a lot of homeowners who are wonderful in their own world of project managing and want to be a project manager on a project. And so if you want to be that sort of resource between an architect and a builder, then maybe you should look at finding a general contractor who can build your house for you. And that keeps you a little bit more involved in coordination with the designer or architect you've hired and the builder, and doing a little bit more project management. I think there's multiple ways to work with a company. It's just more thinking about, what do you want out of this process? Who do you want to guide it? Who do you want in the driver's seat? And what kind of relationship are you looking for out of it? Is it one where you're more hands-off, or are you more invested in having that dream come true?
Well, and I'm sure it matters that you communicate up front your expectations as a client, as well as, how best to effectively communicate, both getting that information from a team like yours, Melissa and Jen, as well as, sharing how it's best for you to communicate, whether if it's a married couple, like, hey, here's who the project manager for our family is going to be, or please make sure you communicate with both of us, even though you can expect a call back from, him or her, things like that.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point. I mean, we work with homeowners of all different types of personalities. And so with Jen and her lead design team, they figure out who's going to be the best lead designer for this client. It's a great personality fit. In construction, we figure out which is the best project manager to meet with this homeowner, both in what type of project is it, and then who's the best project manager to help see that project through. Because the team really does matter. And the communication, when you're when you're building something and when you're going from something that's completely intangible on paper to a physical space that you occupy, communication and clarity on it is so important and can be so challenging. And so trying to make sure that communication lines up to really helps determine the success of the project.
Well, I'm going to leave space for each of you to kind of, give your last best piece of wisdom when it comes to this topic. But also, first of all, Melissa, how can people find Meadowlark? We'll make sure to include details in show notes.
Yeah. So Meadowlark is a design build company in Ann Arbor. We're on Instagram and we're also on Facebook. And then Meadowlark Design Build, you can find us on our website too. If you Google us, we pop up quickly, at least with right now the way the algorithms are working. And you can fill out a form on our website.
Well, I'll start with you, Melissa. What is the kind of last piece of wisdom you would leave for people as they're considering designing and building their dream home?
There's an interesting quote that I'm just going to paraphrase that I think about a lot. I think designing and building is very relevant to this. It's about the journey and not the destination. And so while it can be so much laborious decision making and so much collaborating, and very much indeed one of the biggest investments people will ever make in their life, finding fun and enjoying the process of bringing these ideas all the way to a physical space that you enjoy with your family or your cup of coffee in the sunshine in the morning, finding a way to enjoy the process really makes it a heart experience and not just a head experience. And that's what I would encourage.
I love that. Well, what about you, Jen? You do so much to help bring a vision or just a collection of ideas into something that's on paper and able to be buildable. What would you tell those people?
I think much like Melissa, I would say the relationships really matter. This is a long-term relationship and just keeping an open, honest line of communication. And I think, along with the open, honest communication, just be ready to collaborate. I think that's when the synergy happens. 1 + 1 definitely equals 3 when we're collaborating in the design studio.
I love that. Bring our own ideas to the table, but be open to seeing other people's ideas and kind of being able to meld them. Well, ladies, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. And I bet we're going to have other episodes from you because, just full disclosure, you're doing a remodel for me. And we can talk about remodeling next, where you start with something that already has walls, but do something to improve it.
Thanks, Melissa.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Women's Money Wisdom Podcast. If you found value in this episode, the best way you can support the podcast is to forward an episode to a friend or leave a review. Go to pearlplan.com and the podcast link to get all the resources and links mentioned.